but I want to read just the last line of the tour. He says, "V'yesh omrim she'im yesh lahem hotza achat she'ein lahem heter al yidei hecher she'osim b'neihem." So that's the second. I'm just without getting. There's a certain language problem there, but he says basically that's the second opinion, and he brings it as a yesh omrim. That's the second opinion of Tosfot that says once there's a hotza achat, then the whole idea of heker doesn't work. According to the first opinion, we don't care about hotza achat at all. We just care about whether they know each other. Fine. Although that's kind of whatever. Anyway, it's actually problematic because the two shots. The first one doesn't really talk about whether they know each other. The first one talks about whether they touched, whether there's kricha achat, and the second shot is hotza achat, and that means that they know each other. So he brings, so it's a little bit problematic in the tour because he says that he brings the idea of makirin zeh et zeh, which is actually based on the second pshat of hotza achat, and ke'ein hotza achat, there's like one expenses where they know each other. Because even if they're not spending the bill together, they know each other, so it's like they're spending the bill together, and therefore they share. So wait, it's a little bit confusing what I'm trying to say here, but he's actually combining the two pshats together because zeh is based on the idea of hotza achat. Because if we wouldn't have the idea of hotza achat, we would just say if they're touching, and if they look like they're touching, and we have nothing about whether they know each other. And the whole idea of knowing each other is because of ke'ein hotza achat. This is the Bach. The Bach says such an idea. He says that the tour is sort of combining things together, and then he's doing something not legitimate, because then he says you can have a hefsek. But if we're going by heker, the whole idea of heker is that hefsek doesn't work. Heker only works when we're worried about touching. Anyway, that's just the Bach's kasha. But let's look at the halacha now. If you look at the halacha in the Shulchan Aruch, he says like this. Basically the same as the tour. Afilu basar chaya va'ov asur la'alot al shulchan she'ochin alav gvina shelo yavo lo'ochlan yachad aval b'shulchan shesoder alav hatav shemuter liten zeh b'tzad zeh. That's exactly the lashon of the tour, pretty much. Had asur la'alot al shulchan davka b'shnei b'nei adam shemekirin zeh et zeh. It's only if they know each other. Afilu emek pidim zeh al zeh. Even if they don't like each other, like the brothers. Aval achsanaim she'ein mekirin zeh et zeh mutar. Va'afilu mekirin im asu shum heker. If they know each other, you can do a heker. This is all the tour. Kagon shekol echad ochel al mapa shelo, o afilu ochel al mapa achat, v'notnim b'neihem pat lakira mutar. Notice he just leaves the pot. He doesn't talk about the kelim or the kankan, but the pot is sort of the most problematic one, and that's the one he puts in. Fine. Let me just go. But again, like I said, it's if you're not eating. The shach says it's that you don't eat from it. The shach says, I think. And now he goes on.
There's aggressive typing going on.
Yeah.
I learned to type in a screwball comedy in the 1930s.
Well, I'm talking fast, so there's a typing fast. V'davka she'ein ochlin. I mean the Ramah. V'davka she'ein ochlin min hapat. Oh, there we go. Hamunach beinehem. It's not the shach, it's the Ramah who says you can't eat from the bread. Lahakir. Aval im ochlim mimenu lo have hecher de belav hachi hapat she'ochlim mimenu munach ala shulchan. You always have bread on the table. Aval im natnu beinehem kli shotin mimenu, a pitcher, or ubelav hachi ein darko liyot ala shulchan, but it's not normally there. Have hecher rafal pi shotin min kli, even though you drink from the kli. And if you look in the Shach Vav, he says Ubabach. He quotes the Bach, and he says Pasak de'im shotin mimenu lo have heker. He says no. Like the bread, the pitcher cannot be drunk from. But the Ramah says it could be drunk from. Okay. Or if you put some kind of unusual thing like a candelabra, which I guess you don't normally have in the middle of the table. Now here's a new halacha. Don't drink from the same cup. Mishum Shamachal nidbak b'kli, because you may have something on it. Don't eat from one bread. This, I think, is actually, I am makel about this. Don't eat from one bread. In other words, you may have grease on your hands when you touch the bread, and then you eat milk with it. It could be a problem. V'ken nogin liyached kli shel melach lekol echad b'fnei atzmo ki lefamim tovlin b'melach v'nishar shiorei ma'achal b'melach. I think it means, when it says that you have to have a kli for each one, I think it means for milk and meat. You have to have a kli for salt. It's talking about a dipping, it's talking about a little bowl of salt. Okay, that is Siamnu Peichet. Now Peitet. So back to the Gemara. So new topic. On Kuf Hey Amud Aleph. Sorry. Kuf Hey 105a. The first word on the line is V'Yeraka, and the last word is Kama. It's about 15 lines down. About.
Oh.
On Kuf Hey. Kama yishaheh bein basar l'gvina. Atar, you want to read? Oh. Where it is. So let's stop for a second there. Notice that there's actually an opinion that says lo klum. You don't have to wait at all.
It's redacted.
What? Well, I'm just saying there's a havamina. They reject it, but there is a statement there that says kama yishahev bein basar legvina merle lok v'lo klum. You don't have to wait at all. It's going to be redacted, yes. Ve'eni. Go ahead. Wait, ve'eni v'ha'amar Rav Hista achal basar asur le'echol gvina. Oh, that's what it really meant. The question wasn't between basar le'gvina, it was between gvina le'basar. Amar le v'lo klum. And that's where he said lo klum. So you don't have to wait after cheese. Gufa. So wait, so first we said that meat you have to wait. You're not allowed, no, it says asur to eat cheese after meat, and it's mutter to eat milk, to eat meat after milk. And now we ask a question. What about if you find meat in your teeth after you've eaten meat? What is the din of it? Is it, I guess the question is mahu. Is it meat? So, go ahead. So wait, what do we learn from that pasuk?
It stays meat.
It's categorized as meat. Even if it's in your teeth, it's categorized as meat. So what does that imply? What halacha do we learn from that?
As long as it's in your teeth, you can't have dairy after it.
You can't, right? So or you can't have dairy with it. I guess you can't. Well, does that? There's two possibilities. One is that you have to wait some amount of time after the meat has been removed from your teeth, or it could be a simpler halacha, just saying as long as there's meat in your teeth, you can't eat milk, and you have to remove it if you see it there. And you're not allowed to leave the meat in your teeth and then eat milk.
Which means you can't read that right as that you can't be eating your meal and then have a bite of cheese in the middle of it and then continue. Because you still got
Well, as long as you don't have any meat. If you don't have any meat in your teeth, then you're okay. But yeah, we're learning that you can't eat them together, even if it's in your teeth. You can't eat them together. You might think, well, I've already eaten it. It's not called eating it together. You say, no, if it's called meat still. So now, so far we've said that it's usher to eat milk after meat, but we haven't said, or gvina after meat, but we haven't said how much to wait. So here we're going to get an agada, or a story to tell us how much to wait. Go ahead.
Sorry, but just to be clear, we did ask that question to start.
We started off by asking how much to wait, and we said lo klum, but then we said the question was actually about milk and then meat, and that's where it's lo klum.
Right.
But we never asked the question how much you have to wait after meat. That question we never asked, actually. And we certainly didn't get an answer to it. We didn't get a number.
We asked it, and we got it. We asked the question, we got an answer, but then they rewrote the question and answer.
Right, we rewrote the question and answer, exactly. So we're still left with the question, with that question, that false question never answered. Right? That false question is still not answered. So we're going to get an answer, sort of, by way of a story, but not a real definite answer. But let's read. Go ahead, Atar. Says, I am like vinegar, the son of wine, regarding my father. That my father would eat basar ha'idna this time, v'lo have achel gvina ad lamachar. He would not eat cheese
24 hours.
Until the same time the next day.
Does it mean the same time or just the next day?
Well, it's a good question. I'm looking for ad hashta. Thank you. Right, we stopped there. Ad lamachar ad hashta. I was just looking at the correction. Ki hashta. Fine, even better. Ki hashta. Ad lamachar ki hashta. Until, like, at the same time. V'ilu ana. He's not done. Go ahead, Atar. So what does that mean?
I'll eat it in the next meal.
Right. So the yeah, I assume he was not fasting. He's saying it's 24 hours. Yes, he's saying I'm worse than my father. I only wait till the next meal. By the way, do we have an answer to the question? How much you have to wait after meat? A story is not an answer. In other words, if anything, then this story seems to say people do different things. Even from their father, they do different things. In other words, it doesn't sound like we're getting a definite answer. But we could learn it. We never even asked the question. We never asked the question. If you don't ask the question, you don't get an answer. Sometimes you ask the question, you don't get an answer.
In terms primarily of like hours or whatever, he's thinking in terms of meals.
No, but I'm saying we never asked the question, and we didn't get a definitive answer, because even if he says Suda Achrina, he's not saying one must do that. He's saying that is my behavior. He's not saying that is a requirement of all Jews. He's not saying there's a gezerah. He's just saying that is my behavior, and I am mournful. I think that my behavior is not so great compared to my father.
So Rabbi Chisda here is not Hadash anything, really. He's just stating the obvious. We already know that there is the time you have to wait because it's already brought previous to Rabbi Chisda's statement.
We know that it's usser to eat. It just said the word usser, right? But we couldn't imagine that it's usser. Achal basar asur le'echol gvina. Well,
We just get the reason why.
hopefully that's not forever. Hopefully that's not forever. it says it's forbidden to eat cheese. It's not. I assume that's some limit on that. And so now we're having a story that's giving us a couple limits. Well, certainly 24 hours you could eat it later. It's not forever. And even the next meal, Rav Ukva is eating it. So we're getting a limitation, but I'm saying it's not directly addressed. All right, let's go on. Where are we? Okay, so that's all we have to see there. That's enough. Let's look at, is there a Rashi? No.
There's a very famous Tosfot.
But there's a very famous Tosfot. There's two Tosfots, actually. Look at Lesudata. Gila, you want to read Lesudata? Lesudata Achrita in Tosfot.
Sure. Lesudata Acharita Achioma, that one?
Yes, exactly.
So it doesn't, when we say suda, it doesn't have to be like an established breakfast or dinner that one ordinarily for the table and event.
Exactly. It's key to remember. The key to remember here is what are the minimum requirements. Silek et shulchan, which means you took away the kelim, and birech, and you blessed. That is enough. You have to bless. You cannot eat them in the same meal. You have to bless. And you have to clear away. You can't have them on the same table. Because we already learned that or that's a sign that the meal is over. Two signs that the meal is over. Let's look at another Tosfot. I think you have to turn back a page.
I just ask, what do you think Lok Lok Rabbanan means here? What did they not argue between Ben Sudan and Sudan Bina?
In other words, they said it's the next meal, and they didn't care whether the next meal is you made it early or you made it late. They didn't specify any details. We were used to thinking of lo plug as being a chumrah, like everything is aser. Here is an interesting case of the word lo plug being used to mean everything is mutter. Once it's another meal, it's mutter. Whether it's 6 hours later, 4 hours later, or immediately. Lo plug. Their heter was a general heter. Which is interesting. I mean, it's interesting to remember that there's this low plug like that.
But we know that Basar Dina Ben Shanamite, how does it get around that? That's what I can't understand about this Tosfot.
Because that doesn't.
It doesn't change the fact that the meat is still between the teeth.
I can.
Still a problem.
If I quote Rabbi, you're my straight man. I'll quote the rabbi. That's a great question. Because the statement of Basar Ben Shinayim is nothing to do with this. That could be 12 hours later, 100 hours later. It's just another law that says you can't have meat in your teeth when you're eating milk. And therefore, if you notice meat in your teeth, you have to remove it.
Rob Danzig.
Yes.
With all due respect, I think maybe that you included the end of 104b because of the washing out the mouth element, which I think would be on this point.
Yeah.
Like what's leading into this discussion is like a debate around about washing out your mouth in between eating milk.
Definitely.
Which is, like a toothpick or whatever.
Definitely that. Yeah, I skipped over it because I didn't want to spend a lot of time. But yes, definitely, there's a whole discussion about washing hands and washing the mouth between milk and meat. I'm not going to deal with it, but there is a whole discussion in the previous Gemara. But I do want to look on the previous Gemara on Kuf Daled Amud Bet in the Tosfot. The Tosfot starts Of V'Gvina, the last Tosfot on the page, Of V'Gvina Ein Basar V'Gvina, Of V'Gvina In Basar V'Gvina Lo. talking about what things you have to wash. There's a halacha that you should all know, which is that chicken, that it says, Of v'gvinen echalin ba'afikoren, which means you don't have to wash your hands after milk before eating chicken. But in this Tosfos here, the fourth wide line starts with the Rabenu Tam Mefarish. Everyone sees that?
Yeah.
Maybe Gila, you want to read that for us?
Sure. For Rabenu Tam Mefarish, v'chein hilchot gedolot, za'achal basar, asor le'echol gvina, hainu below netila v'kinuach, aval b'netila v'kinuach shari.
So stop right there.
So Rabenu Tam and the Bahag are of the opinion that if you eat basar, it's only asar to eat vina if you haven't done netila and kinuach. But if you do netila and kinuach, it is permitted.
Exactly. So this is different from Tosfot. Tosfot said you have to do silek and birech, right? You have to clear the table and bench. The Rabenu Tam holds you just need to wash your hands and wash your mouth, or wipe your hands and whatever, and wash your hands and your mouth. In other words, but it could be in the same meal. You do not have to bench. I think a lot of people remember this wrong. They remember Rabenu Tam says it could be just the next meal. It's actually complicated. The Gemara says it's the next meal. The Tosfos says, yeah, the next meal, once you bench. And Rabenu Tam says, no, not the next meal. He actually is sort of arguing on the Gemara, because the Gemara says the next meal. And he's saying, you don't have to separate your meal in an official way. Actually, I heard that Rav Soloveitchik did a distinction here, I think here, that whether we're worried, is it a Gavra issue or a Hefza issue? In other words, is the Gavra has to be clean. You wash your hands and you're ready to have the next meal. Or is it the Hefza? The meal has to be ended. The meal has to be finished and now you're at a different meal. Or is it the Gavra has to be clean? Anyway, you just remember there's another opinion, Rabenu Tam, that's even more Meko. And then he goes on.
Just to be clear, kinuach here means to wash out of your mouth. Is that?
Well, I was sort of fudging on it because there are different opinions about kinuach hapeh is usually the term used in the Gemara here. So yes, so kinuach means kinuach hapeh. Aval b'bentila v'kinuach shari. Then it goes on. Achal gvina mutar le'achol basar af below netila v'kinuach. You ate meat, you don't have to even do this washing of the hands. Umar ukva delo achil ad lesuda achrita. And that statement of Mar ukva, I'm still in the Tosfos. Hainu below netila v'kinuach. He's saying if I don't wash my hands and wash my mouth, then I don't eat it until the next meal. But if I would wash my hands, then I can do it right away. So he's claiming that he's not arguing on the Gemara. He's claiming Rav Ukva agrees with me. Inami machmir al atzmo. Or alternatively, Rav Ukma was just being machmir on himself. Alright, I won't read any more. But anyway, so he tries to explain the Gemara that he's really right. That's enough of the Gemara. So actually, I'll tell you like this. We have Mar Ukva, that you need to wait. We first have a statement that says you don't need to wait at all. That statement is redacted. Then we have Mar Ukva, who says you need to wait until the next meal. Now there are 4 opinions in the Rishonim as to what that means. So the Bahag and Rabenu Tam we just saw says it means wash the mouth and hands. Tosfot and the Rav Yah agrees with the Tosfot that Birkat HaMazon and changing the table is what you need. And now we have 2 more opinions that you didn't see. So it's HaIsser VaHeter says the...
Wait, where are we?
Now I'm just talking.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm just talking. We saw the 2 opinions, the Rabenu Tam and the Tosfos and the Rav Yah. That's 2 opinions. The third opinion that I want to mention to you is the Sefer HaIsser VaHeter says the minhag is 1 hour, which is essentially a chumrah on the opinion of the Tosfot. In other words, bench and wait an hour. The pre-Hadash says, and also also if you see the commentary of the Gra here on the page, and even I think the Shach mentions, the source is in the Zohar, which says don't eat them in the same sha'ah. So you learn that you have to wait a sha'ah. So that's kind of a chumrah on the other opinion. The Creative Plati says no. The Zohar, when it says oto sha'ah, it means don't eat them at the same time. It doesn't mean in the same hour. There's no chumrah of an hour based on the Zohar. He says the real source for waiting an hour, says the Creative Plati, is based on this idea that you may all know that the Magen Avraham says that the important halacha also that if you forgot to bench, you can wait an hour and a quarter, and it's an hour and a quarter hasn't passed, then you can still bench. But if an hour and a quarter has passed, it's too late. You missed the boat, because the food has really started to digest, started to get out of your intestines or out of your stomach, and you no longer feel full. So that's the source for an hour, even though it's not exactly an hour, but he says that's the source for an hour, that the food, it's like the next meal. You can't bench anymore. It's a new meal. So an hour is like the idea of the new meal. And then the fourth opinion is most Rishonim, which is 6 hours. Those are the. So again, the Isser VaHeter says it's 1 hour, and the most Rishonim say 6 hours. And that's the Rambam. I didn't tell you to read the Rambam. I assume you all know the Rambam. He says famously, Kemo Shesha'ot. There's also a what?
Which gets translated as 6 hours, whether you like it or not.
Which gets translated as 6 hours. But the Rambam says Kemo. He says Kemo Shesha'ot. Now, of course, they didn't have digital clocks or even quartz clocks or any kind of clocks back then. The Meiri says 5 or 6 hours. The Deah Omer permits you to rely on this opinion in Shas Adachak, in a constrained circumstance, like if you're in the army or in yeshiva. In other words, you can rely on this. Well, the truth is, it's also the pre-Hadash. The pre-Hadash says he says you can rely on 5.5 hours. The Deah Omer says if you're not in control of the time of your meals. Actually, I just was talking to a friend of mine.
Also, if he's eaten off, that he's very careful about that.
Off is the same. We're not going to make that distinction really. Although he does bring that in.
I think that's an issue.
I think you're right. No, he does mention. I'm sorry. He does mention Of as being another reason to be Mekil. You're right.
Doesn't like it.
What was I going to say? Yeah. But in the Litvish yeshivas, they sometimes have lunch at 1 o'clock and dinner at 7 o'clock. In fact, that is the time they have at most of the yeshivas. Lunch at 1 o'clock and dinner at 7. Now, if you think about it, unless you eat lunch in under a minute, you're not waiting 6 hours. They have a fleshik lunch at 1 o'clock. And if you come 5 minutes late, and if you eat for 15 minutes, or if you eat for half an hour, so the yeshiva bachrim are allowed to eat milchik, because they're in a constrained circumstance. In other words, that's the schedule. Now, it's an interesting question, because why are the yeshivas scheduling it like that? Let them schedule it a little different. But apparently, once there's I actually argued with a friend of mine about this. It seems like once you have scheduled it, you're allowed to schedule it like that. And then that creates a kula for people. In other words, the 6 hours is not a strict requirement. And certainly they didn't have clocks that were accurate. When they said 6 hours, It couldn't have meant exactly 6 hours because there was no way to have exactly 6 hours. The Pri Chadash says that 6 hours just means the normal time between meals, and that it changes in the summer and in the winter from place to place. And this pshat actually is quite close to the Gemara's pshat of the next meal. In other words, he's saying the next meal would normally be 6 hours later, and that would sometimes be earlier and sometimes be later, depending on even on a local custom. The Ramah. All right, so let's look at the Shulchan Aruch. Let's look at the Shulchan Aruch. I gave you some.
Actually, that also brings the Tosfos back into it because the Tosfos' objection on 105 A was when we say pseudo, we don't mean like a meal. We just mean actually.
We don't mean a meal. We mean a time. Oh, he says lo plug.
Yeah, lav sudas shurigilin. Yeah, lav sudas shurigilin lasas achas shachris v'achas arvis. Right, like
well,
it's trying to take it out of the.
It's kind of like the Pri Chadash puts the Pri Chadash puts the Tosfos on his head. He says, yeah, lo plug, but they said any time it's the next meal. And Tosfos says it's not dafka the next meal, and the Pri Chadash says no, it is dafka the set next meal. But the set next meal itself is variable, and therefore we can be lenient as the most lenient of those variations. If in the winter it's short, then in the summer you can also do it that short time. Now he says it's not. He says Suda means a time, but it means a short time because it's whenever people have their meals as close as they ever have them together, and that's the time. So
what does the Pri Chadash say about 1 hour? You mentioned it before.
About 1 hour? Yeah, he said, just, I'll read it to you again. He says, it wasn't the Pri Chadash, you mean I said the Isser Beheter says the minhag is 1 hour as a Chumrah on Tosfos. The Pri Chadash says the source is in the Zohar, right. And the Kreti Upleti argues on the Pri Chadash on that point. Now, and then the question is, does the Gra really mean that the source is in the Zohar when the Gra says it? Because you don't want to argue on the Gra, so they try to say, no, the Gra didn't really mean that the source is in the Zohar. There's a Gra. You can look, I'll show you the Gra right now if you want. Where are we? In the Shulchan Aruch, I'm skipping the tour, and I'm just going to the Shulchan Aruch. Hey, Tet. There we go. Yeah, if you look in the Gra, Vav. You see, everyone have a Gra there?
Yeah.
So the Gra says in Vav, V'haminhag v'chule, he says, Benuya, it's built, Benuya al divrei ha-zohar, Parsha Mishpatim, Dekol man da'achil hai michla kechada. Oh, he eats it, that milk, he eats it kechada at once. Or no, that food at once, o b'shata chada, or at 1 hour, o b'suda chada, or in one meal, so then he gets some kind of curse. So that's the Gra, and actually it's also brought in the Shach. I don't see it right now, but the Shach also mentions that source. So, okay. Let's look. Wait a second.
So, will you be getting to the 3-hour compromise position?
The 3-hour. Yes.
I found the shach. I'm curious.
You found the Shach.
It's Tet Zion.
Tet Zion. That's why I didn't see it. It's the next page. 2 pages. Tet Zion. Ein ochlin. Katuv b'sefer Mitzaref L'Chochma, that's a book, Daf Kaf Zayin Amud Aleph, Lefi Ma Shenitba'er B'Sif Aleph, the Amar Achilat Basar Noagin Lahamtin Shah Achat, Im Kein Efshar Degam HaZohar Modeh Shelo Asar Rak Besuda Chada Ubeshata Chada Veduk. It just prohibited in 1 hour, but not outside an hour. Velishna de HaZohar Parshat Mishpatim Haki Mashma. Okay, he just mentions that it's a Zohar. Yeah, the 3 hours I'll mention is only in a book called Darkei Tshuva. He says that he bases it on Rabenu Yerucham, and it's actually similar to what we saw in the pre-Hadash, that it's the winter time. That in the winter, that would be the closest time you would have a meal together. 3 hours. So the Deah Omer, if you want to know where that is, it's in Yoreh Deah Siman Aleph, Sefer Aleph of Yoreh Deah Siman Samach Dalid, and he says there 5.5 hours you can be Mekel. The Meiri says, I don't know, the Meiri seems to also say 5 hours. Let's look at the Shulchan Aruch. And here he says, Achal basar afilu shel chayav ha'ov, lo yochal gavina acharav, ad she'yishaheh 6 sha'ot. You have to wait 6 hours. He doesn't say like the Rambam, kemo 6 sha'ot. He says 6 sha'ot. Va'afilu im shaha keshi'ur, even if you wait that time, im yesh basar bein hashinayim sarich li'siro. And that was what I was saying. There's a separate halacha of removing this meat. V'halo es l'tinok sarich lamtin. And even if you don't swallow the food, but you chew it for a tinok, you have to wait, because the Rambam gives I didn't say the reasons. What are the reasons for waiting? So there's 2 reasons. The Rambam brings because of basar bein hashinayim. In other words, once you wait 6 hours, then there won't be any meat in between your teeth. What if you do?
Maybe that it no longer considered meat.
And if you do find meat in your teeth, according to the Rambam, maybe he means, this is the way most people understand the Rambam, maybe he means that, like the way Deborah said, that it's not called meat, so you don't have to check. But I think that I'm not sure that's what the Rambam means. I think he might mean it won't be there. It'll have fallen out by then. But if you would find it, then maybe you do have to remove it.
No, he doesn't consider it meat. He says me'uchal. He says up to that point.
He says I didn't look at the Rambam recently. Do you have it there?
Yeah.
Mu'chal, but that doesn't, even that, you're saying it's been turned into non-meat. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other reason is that the food is in your stomach and it's the moshech tam rav. In other words, the food gives a flavor, the fat comes up and flavors your mouth for 6 hours after you ate the meat. And that has nothing to do with, even if you had no teeth at all, it would still come up into your mouth. So look at the Ramah. V'im matzah achar kach basar shebein hashinayim u'masiro tzarich ladiach piv kodem sheyochal gvina. In other words, and you don't have to wait. In other words, you don't have to wait another 6 hours from whenever you found that meat. V'yesh omrim de'ein tzrichin lahantin 6 sha'ot rak miyad im silek Ubirek, who is that? Tosfot, not Rabenu Tam. Birkat Hamazon mutter al yedei kinuach v'hadacha. So now it's Rabenu Tam. He's combining two opinions, really, that maybe he learns it differently. He learns that Rabenu Tam didn't argue on that other opinion, but fine. He seems to be putting them both together. V'aminag ha'pashut b'medinot elu l'hamtin achar achilat basar sha'achat. We wait 1 hour. V'ochlin achar kach gvina, and then we eat cheese. Mihu tzrichin levarech. Ken birkat hamazon achar habasar. You need to bless. Va'az have kesuda acheret. Demuter le'echol divrei ledivrei hamekeli. Aval below birkat hamazon. If you don't bench, lo mahane hamtanasha. The hour won't wait. Whenever I read that, I always think, what about if you wait 6 hours? 1 hour, it says, doesn't wait. It doesn't work. But maybe if you wait 6 hours. Now, the commentaries say, no, afilu kol hayom. It says, if you look in Shach Hey, he says, Im lo si, I'm just going to read it, it's in the middle of Shach Hey. He says, Im lo sileku birek afilu kol hayom kulo asur. You have to bench. And this goes even if you had, let's say, mizonot, you would have to bench. Whereas if you had a meat pie, and you would have to bench. You would have to bench. I mean, you'd have to say a bracha after a bracha achrona before you could eat milk. Vein chiluk im hemtin sha'a kodem birkat hamazon o achar kach. In other words, you just have to wait an hour from whenever you last ate meat. Doesn't matter if it was before or after the benching. You don't have to wait another hour after benching. You have to start the clock. The stopwatch starts ticking at the moment you ate your last bite of meat. Ve'im matzah basar ben shinav achar sha'a tzarich linakro